We were at the Charlie Palmer Steakhouse in the Knickerbocker Hotel, very historic hotel where apparently the martini was created, right, Nelson?
Well,
Um,
no, well, I wasn't there at the time, but
no.
but I've been trying to make up for it ever since.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Carganilla Online Variety Entertainment Podcast. Here's your host, Paul Carganilla.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of Cove Podcast. This is the online variety show in which we aim to both entertain and inspire our podcast listeners and YouTube viewers through a wide variety of art forms, including music, poetry, storytelling, special guest interviews, travel blogs, dramatic readings, a whole grab bag, a jambalaya of conversations, experiences, thoughts, reflections to listen to each week to keep you going and get you excited when you see it drop in your podcast feed. And here in Season 2, we will be catching up with friends we met in Season 1 and also making new friends, creators and performers with inspirational stories we've yet to explore. Today, in the first episode of our second season, we'll be doing exactly that, catching up with an old pal and meeting a new one. I can't wait to dig in, but first, of course, we got to bring that cart back behind the horse and say hello and good to see you, producer Craig Jackman.
Welcome.
Well, thank you so very much. I am excited as well for today's show. I mean, first of all, when we, if I may say his name right now, Nelson is,
Of course.
When that first meeting of Nelson was just incredible, and it was a fun interview. It was a great interview, and he had so much to share. And when you shared that we were going to once again have another interview with him to follow up with what he's doing, it was like, oh, good. And now he's bringing a friend along.
That's right. And for anyone who remembers Season 1, if you haven't seen the first episode with Nelson Aspen, go check that out. But I can tell you, in those that have seen it, remember, he is a global entertainment reporter. He has been for many decades. He's also the co-host of Titanic Talk with Alexandra Boyd that Everly and I actually had the pleasure of being guests on. That was a lot of fun. And he's also a published author of both fiction and nonfiction. When we met him in Season 1, we talked about his book, Dancing Between the Raindrops, and he's ready to release his follow-up, the sequel, Dancing Between the Raindrops, The Hollywood Years. So we'll talk about that today. Excited to catch up with him, but we'll also be chatting about his upcoming live shows there in Manhattan, New York City. They're going to be live on stage in a cabaret there, but they will also be streamed online. Anyone, anywhere in the world can buy a ticket and check it out live. We will talk about that. And we also will have the pleasure of meeting his co-star in that show, Allyson Briggs. We get to meet her tonight. Allyson Briggs has been a dynamic band leader and businesswoman in Manhattan for over a decade. She is the founder and leader of, I should have asked her how to pronounce this. Do you have any idea, Craig? Fleur Seule?
I'd say either Fleur Seule or Fleur Seule.
Okay, which is Manhattan's very own retro jazz band that brings the glamour and swinging sounds of the golden age of Hollywood to life on stage in hundreds of public and private events around the world every year. She also serves as an entertainment consultant to cruise lines, event planners, and multiple Times Square hospitality teams. What makes her unique is her equal levels of experience on stage, in front of clients, and behind the scenes, working with those clients to bring their visions to life, offering her unparalleled work experience and insight. She has great relationships with the entertainment industry's top vendors, and with her incredible team, she creates unforgettable events, and can't wait to talk to her and Nelson about the incredible events they have coming up in July and August. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming back to Cove Podcast, Nelson Aspen, and welcoming Allyson Briggs. Hello from across the country, friends.
Oh, hello. Hello, Allyson. Hello, Craig.
Fancy
Hello.
meeting you here.
Yes, yes. Here
In
on
that
the
whole
interwebs.
lovely introduction of Allyson and Fleur Seule, you neglected to mention how drop dead gorgeous she is. She is also becoming known as a bit of a fashion plate, as you can see on all of her social media. She is something else. I can't say enough amazing things about this amazing woman.
I will say, when I saw the videos that we're going to share with everybody, stunning.
Yeah.
As-
Married. Sorry, Craig.
All right, next
Not
time.
to me.
Yes, drop dead gorgeous as well. Thank you both for joining us and just spending some time with us, telling us about the new stuff you've got going. But first, we can't go any further without introducing Allyson with this 60-second icebreaker introduction challenge that we do here on the show. We challenge our guests to tell us everything we could possibly know about you in 60 seconds or less. Now, this is all the not professional stuff, right? So I read your bio. So anything that wasn't on there that you can squeeze into 1 minute. I have to say, Nelson Aspen, what has been the number one, because he's got a timer in his head, he nailed it to the second. But we're not going to stop you if you go over, and if you go under, I'll just have to throw some random questions at you. But are you ready for the challenge?
Yeah.
Let's take it away whenever you're ready.
Well, about me, besides what you did mention, thank you very much. Fleur Seule, or anything close to that, is how you say the band name. I'm also a voiceover actor, so I do a lot of work here in my booth, talking to myself in my closet. So that's how I spend my days, and then I spend my nights behind the microphone singing and performing. I am also a parrot mom. I have a little bird named Ziggy, who is my little assistant, and I absolutely love all things performing and fashion. So it's music, it's vintage fashion, it's all the parts of it, the jewelry, hair, clothing, every part of it. I love it. I miss that glam and style, and I'm on a mission to bring it back in everything I do. So if there's anything else that I left out, I'll think about that.
That was pretty good. Nelson, how'd she do?
She did great. I could talk about her for 2 hours and not just 60 seconds. But yeah, she is an amazing, gifted performer, and not just with Fleur Seule and leading her band with all of this incredible music, but she is a very popular and sought after presence. A lot of Broadway shows, like for their opening parties or any of those kinds of high end events at the high end places around Manhattan. She appears and dazzles. And she's quite famous. It's so funny how we make cottage industries for ourselves in other countries. Like I had a 20-year television gig in Australia, so I'm quote unquote famous in Australia. Allyson is very famous in Puerto Rico, and it's just so funny how the world works. And she is a global superstar, and I'm so excited that I get to perform with her. And even how we met was noteworthy. I saw her at one of her gigs. I was a guest at this event, and I was so dazzled by her that I sought her out to know her. I was doing a gig at the Green Room 42, where we'll be doing the Tony Bennett show. I was doing a different show at the time, and I asked her to be my guest star. And it was a really good way to see if we had that kind of chemistry, and we did. She's a far more gifted musician than I. She makes me better. Even when we're in the studio rehearsing together, I really have to up my game because I feel like she's a superstar, and I need to be better.
Well, I meant how'd she do as far as 60 seconds went, but that was a perfect complimentary introduction to her. And thank you to everybody who's tuning in live in the live YouTube chat. A friend of yours, I assume, by the name of David Barfield, says, "Happy birthday, Allyson. Is it your birthday?"
Thank you, David. It was on Thursday, and I've been kind of celebrating all throughout the weekend. So we're stretching it out.
Birthday week, and you're joining us on your birthday weekend. That's amazing. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Well, Nelson mentioned this, and I had to join him. So
And David's going to give me the perfect transition into our first video we're going to share. He says here in the chat, she sings in multiple languages too. And we happen to have a video clip of Allyson with her band Fleur Seule. Thank you for letting me know how to pronounce that. And this is a little La Vie en Rose.
Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rêve qui se perce, se mouche. Voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas. Je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit de mots d'amour, le monde de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur et on ne parle de bonheur dont je connais la cause. Celui pour moi ma plus grande vie. Il me l'a dit la journée d'où il est venu, que je le perçois. Alors je sens mon cœur qui bat.
Fantastic. Move over, Louis Armstrong. I have a new favorite version of that tune.
Edith who?
So, right? And
I have to tell you something about Allyson's performance of that song. So my husband and I, we'd been married a while, but we'd never had a honeymoon. And we were discussing where to go for our honeymoon. Anniversary's in January. And so we thought, we'll go someplace warm. But we actually had Allyson's one of her albums on Sonos. And so we were listening to that. And La Vie en Rose came on as we were discussing our honeymoon. And I said, honey, we haven't been to Paris since before the pandemic. And we ended up taking our honeymoon belatedly in Paris, thanks to Allyson's rendition of La Vie en Rose just happened to be playing. That's kismet.
Wow. And who could blame that inspiration with such a fantastic performance? Well done. So tell me, how did you get into music and when did you start singing?
Gosh, when I was probably 4 or 5, I did my first musical theater performance. It just, I think, was in me from birth. My parents played everything. I'm really grateful that they played such a wide range of styles because it exposed me to so much, from a lot of Frank Sinatra, but also the Carpenters, opera, country, R&B, lots of Aretha Franklin. My dad loves Aretha Franklin. So it was kind of a huge range of styles and vocalists in that, time capsule of like maybe the 20s to the 80s when I think music was the best. And that sparked something in me, and I just never stopped singing since I was like 5 years old.
I love that. And any parents out there, give your children the gift of music. I beg of you. I had the pleasure of, my father was a band teacher growing up, and he toured the country with the Air Force Jazz Band. And I was exposed to a lot of big band, a lot of Frank Sinatra growing up. And I'm still so grateful to this day for that.
Any of your listeners who aren't aware, Paul, you and your wife are magnificent singers as well. When Paul surprised us on Titanic Talk, he and his wife, on the anniversary of the Titanic tragedy, he and his wife sang "Nearer, My God, to Thee," and we just, no pun intended, it was a religious experience. It was just beautiful, and we're so grateful that we have this ever expanding family of talented, kind people.
And thank you again for inviting us to be a part of that. I'm glad the Queen Mary's Wi-Fi let us at least glitch in a little bit. But also, like, that old timey, I love the Rat Pack era, the Marilyn look. And if anybody's just listening to the audio podcast, I encourage you to find this on YouTube. And you can see, of course, we've mentioned she's gorgeous, but she just has that whole, if Marilyn Monroe was a legit singer, like that seems like what you embody on stage. And that is just so wonderful. So tell me, so you met by Nelson seeing you in a show with your band?
Mm-hmm. We were at the Charlie Palmer Steakhouse in the Knickerbocker Hotel, very historic hotel where apparently the martini was created, right, Nelson?
Well, I wasn't there at the time, but
no.
But I've been trying to make up for it ever since.
That's what I think really was their claim to fame. And I performed there for many years, and we were doing, I think, a series over Easter weekend, and we got to chatting, and then one thing led to another, and it just all started kind of clicking, and we did the collaboration in June of last year. And they said, you know what, I have another idea for this Tony Bennett tribute thing. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting.
It was June. I was doing, so it was a year ago. This is our 1-year anniversary, Allyson.
Oh.
Is that right? Yeah. It was my 60th birthday show. And so she was my guest star for my 60th birthday show. And then after that, Tony Bennett had passed away in July. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Tony Bennett passing away. And I had done a marvelous interview for my Australian show with Tony Bennett back in 2014, where he had invited me to his home to discuss his painting. And I spent this incredible day with Tony Bennett in his home. It made for a wonderful segment. And when Tony passed away, I was like, let's take that segment and create a Tony Bennett tribute show around it, because he said these gems, pearls of wisdom about art, artistry, his upbringing, encouraging new talent, which he was such a master of encouraging new talent. And I thought Allyson is the perfect foil in all of this, because Tony is so famous for having performed with Amy Winehouse and Lady Gaga and Diana Krall and Judy Garland. I mean, he performed with so many different artists over the years, including, male and female. But I was like, what if we can recreate some of those moments together? Not doing imitations of Tony and anyone else, our own interpretations, not imitations. And so we thought we would do that. And then at Halloween time, Allyson was doing a gig and asked me to be her guest star. And that was the first time we did a Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga song together.
Yes.
Wow.
And Nelson does a mean monster mash, I may put out there.
That's a great tease, because we're going to visit that in just a moment. But let's pull the cart back behind the horse on your show from last June. Is this when you did Lady is a Tramp?
That was the Halloween show. Allyson's Halloween show. We did. That was the first time we performed any of the Tony Bennett material.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's drop in and give the audience a little taste of Nelson and Allyson performing together as a la Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga. Here is Lady is a Tramp.
She wines and dines on mulligan stew and never asks for turkey, as she hitched and hiked and grifted too from Maine to Albuquerque.
Alas, I missed the Beaux-Arts ball, and what is twice as sad, I was never at a party where they honored no old cat. But social circles spin too fast for me. My Bohemia is the place to be.
She gets too hungry for dinner at 8. She loves the theater but never comes late.
I never bother with people that I'd hate. That's why the lady is a tramp.
She don't play crap games with barons and earls.
Won't go to Harlem in ermines and pearls. And you know I won't dish the dirt with the best of those lovely girls.
That's why the lady is a tramp.
I like the free and fresh cobwebs in my hair.
Life without care.
I'm broke.
It's so.
I hate California. It's too cold and too damp. That's why the lady is a tramp.
How we doing?
Now I go to Coney.
Well, the beach is divine.
I go to ball games.
And the bleachers are fine.
I follow the New York Times.
Reads every line. That's why the lady is a tramp.
I love a prize fight.
Yes, it isn't a fake.
You know, I love the rowing on Tony's Central Park Link.
She goes to the opera and stays wide awake. That's why the lady is a tramp. She likes the green grass under her shoes.
What can I lose? I'm flat.
Well, that's that.
I'm all alone when I lower my lamp.
That's why the lady is a tramp.
Take it, Andy. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you.
So fun.
Oh, such a good time. And I'm so jealous. I'm gonna try. Like I'm so just want to like try to figure out a way to get there, get to New York to see this show that you guys are gonna put on. And Megan in the chat says Nelson. We were talking about Nelson in his performance on stage, and she says Nelson's live show is an absolute treat. His birthday cabaret was one of the best times I ever had.
And she's sweet. She's one of our Titaniacs. She came to us from Titanic Talk and made the trip to New York. And the venue is lovely, the Green Room 42, and we'll be there for 4 shows at the end of July and the beginning of August. The July shows commemorate the passing of Tony, and the August shows commemorate the birth of Tony. So it's really a special time and worth the trip. If you can't be in New York in person, we do have the streaming option for the August 4th show. The August 4th show will live stream, and as it's explained to me, if you get a live stream ticket, the link is good for a week. So if you're not in a conducive time zone or a place to watch it at that exact time, you'll still have access to it for a week. And I noticed in the chat somebody was asking about guest stars, and because we're doing so much Tony material, but there is one performance, the July 24th performance, we are having a guest star, which is a treat, a young man named Tommy O'Neill. And what's exciting about Tommy is he is a direct reflection of the kind of philanthropist and humanitarian that Tony Bennett was. Tony Bennett endowed the Frank Sinatra High School of the Performing Arts here in New York City. And, usually you think, if some big celebrity is going to endow something, they're going to put their name on it. No, it's the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts. But they did name, and Tony Bennett founded that school, and they named the concert hall the Tony Bennett Concert Hall. And yeah, I've known Tommy since he was practically a baby, and I didn't realize he was attending that school. And his proud dad showed me a video of him. There's Tommy. His dad showed me a video of him singing a Tony Bennett song, and I'm like, if Tommy would like to come and sing a Tony Bennett song with the band, that would be amazing. And he will be joining us on July 24th, which, as it turns out, is the night before he turns 17 years old. So it's a real gift from Tony and to Tony that we're going to be joined by Tommy.
That is so neat. And these specific dates are Sunday, July 21st and Wednesday, July 24th. And as he mentioned, Sunday, August 4th and Wednesday, August 7th, my birthday. I'll actually be...
August 7th is your birthday? I should have known you were a Leo.
You mentioned the Tony Bennett, obviously, interviewing him, how that kind of inspired the show. But how did toward the end of his career, he released that duets album, at least one with the modern pop or musicians of the time, doing duets with all kinds of different artists. But
the Viva duets too, and Espanol.
Oh, I didn't know about those.
So there's a whole other album, because I go to Puerto Rico all the time. It's interesting that those songs are what people really know, because he recorded with a lot of Spanish singing stars like Thalia and Romeo Santos and Mark Anthony. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'll have to check those out as well.
Yeah. Allyson will be doing some of our songs in the show. She will be doing in other languages as well. So it's going to be an amazing night, and we will have the clips of Tony from that interview as well, interspersed with the songs and the stories. So it's really something. I'd seen Tony around town, he was always out and about. I would run into him on the street. And then one day I ran into him in the TV studio where I worked, and I got to talking with him, and he was talking about his painting. I was like, I'd love to do a story on this. And he was like, yeah, come on up to the house. And I'm like, okay. And I remember I was in the bathroom thinking, I got to get a really close shave. And what am I going to wear? And I got to his house to do a sort of reconnaissance mission. And while I was getting ready, he was on the NBC Today show singing a Christmas carol on the NBC Today show, because it was Christmas week, I think. And I get down to his apartment on Central Park South, and I wasn't there 5 minutes getting set up when he walked in, and I'm like, Mr. Bennett, we're not starting for like another hour and a half. He's like, oh, that's all right, man. Let's, what do you want to see? You want to look at this? And he's showing me around his apartment. He's like, your parents like my music? I'm like, everybody likes your music. And he's like, no, you should give them this CD. What are their names? And he just couldn't have been more hospitable. And the thing about his sort of intergenerational appeal, you can thank his son for that, because when Tony's career was sort of paused, for lack of a better word, it was his son who reinvented his career by saying, Dad, you should be on MTV. And they got him on MTV and introduced him to a whole new audience. And then he became cool again, like he ever wasn't cool. But that let him maintain his profile and his appeal with younger artists right up until the very end. His last public performance with Lady Gaga at Radio City, when he was already struggling with Alzheimer's, but you wouldn't know it in that show. Man, they were something else.
Wow.
And all completely sold out, by the way. All those shows. Yeah. Where I know people who were selling them on the black market to desperate music lovers.
And that's the thing, when we have to treasure these national treasures while they're here on Earth with us, and as long as they're performing, you got to get out and see live shows and live music. You want to see your favorite performers live before you never know when the end of the tour is going to be for them, figuratively.
It's so funny you say that, Paul, because I know as a kid growing up, I was such a theater nerd growing up, and I lived outside Philadelphia, and whenever Anthony Quinn would come by in Zorba, and Mickey Rooney and Ann Miller in Sugar Babies, and Yul Brynner and The King and I. These tours would sweep through, and my parents took me to see them because and now I can say that I got to see Anthony Quinn and Yul Brynner and Mickey Rooney, whereas not many people can say that. It's important.
Absolutely. And not to be morbid, but we have to make sure we see Allyson and Nelson live.
While you still can.
While we can. Gosh. That's what I'm saying. Grab your tickets. The link is in the live YouTube chat and also in the show notes of the audio podcast. And we'll throw it back to another performance. We mentioned a little earlier about the Monster Mash at your October show. And we do have a little clip of that. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. Monster Mash is always a fun listen. And here are Nelson and Allyson performing live on stage. A little Monster Mash.
Here we go.
Let's see if you're old enough to remember this. I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight, for my monster from its slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise,
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard
He did the
smash.
mash.
It caught on in a flash.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash. From my laboratory in the castle east, from the master bedroom where the vampires feast, the ghouls all came from their humble abodes to get a jolt for my electrode.
He did the mash.
He did the monster
The
mash.
monster mash.
It was a graveyard
They
smash.
did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They did the mash.
He did the monster mash. The zombies were having fun.
Did the shoot.
The party had just begun.
Did the shoot.
The guests included Wolfman,
Did the shoot.
Dracula, and his son.
They did the
The scene was rockin', all we're digging the sounds. Igor on chains, backed by his baying hounds. Coffin bangers about to arrive with their local group, the Crypt Kicker Five.
The mash.
They did the monster
The
mash.
monster mash.
It was a graveyard
They did the
smash.
mash.
It caught on in a flash.
They did the mash.
They played the monster mash. Out from his coffin, Drax's voice did ring. Seems he was troubled by just one thing. He shook his fist, opened the lid, and said, "Whatever happened to my Transylvania twist?"
It's now the mash.
It's now the monster
The
mash.
monster mash.
And it's a graveyard
They did the
smash.
mash.
It catches on in a flash.
They did the mash.
He did the monster mash. Now everything's cool. Drax a part of the band, and my monster mash is the get of the land. For you, the living, this mash was meant to. When you get to my door, seldom Boris sent
And you can mash.
And you can monster mash.
Monster mash.
It is a graveyard smash.
You can mash.
You'll catch on in a flash.
And you can mash.
Then you can monster mash. Mash good. Remember that? Mash good.
I forgot how much fun we have on stage.
Oh my goodness. And so if you're in the live chat, Nelson's saying there was a costume contest, and as we could hear you out there calling out who you were seeing, you're saying the Scarlett O'Hara Carol Burnett costume made famous by Bob Mackie.
Yeah, there was a very famous sketch, and Carol Burnett was doing a spoof of Scarlett O'Hara when she made the curtain dress. But as Carol Burnett wore it, she wore it with an actual curtain rod in it. So it was a brilliantly executed comedy skit back in the 70s. And the gal that won the costume contest brilliantly executed replicating it.
Well, so exciting for your upcoming show. Is there anything else you want to mention about the show specifically?
Well, I would encourage people, especially for the July shows, they're already selling out. So there are more seats at the moment for the August shows. Don't let that deter you, though. Go on to thegreenroom42.com and get your ticket soon. There are all sorts of different tiers of seating. It's really one of the cool things about that venue, and I've been performing almost exclusively there for the last 5 or 6 years, is that there's no minimum. You buy your ticket and they're not forcing you to eat and drink. You just go and you eat and drink what you want. It also has some of the most beautiful vistas outside. If you're an Instagram person, or if you want to just get some good shots of the city, there are all these adjacent beautifully designed bars with overlooking the skyscrapers. It's just a great place to hang out. So that's what we'll be doing. We'll be singing, and then we're going to be hanging out. So we'd love you to join us.
Yes.
So very cool. And of course, as I mentioned, the link is in the live chat, and it's also in the show notes of the audio podcast. There's also a link to the press release. The Broadway World press release is there for you to peruse as well. And gosh, I really want to get to one of those July shows, maybe on our way out to Ireland or something. I can make that happen. But before, we can't, of course, go without talking about the millions of other projects that Nelson's been working on. Of course, in season 1, we mentioned his book, and as I mentioned at the top of the episode, the sequel's coming out. This came pretty quick here, Nelson.
I know. That's actually the very first look. You're getting the exclusive first look at the cover. We did want it to resemble the previous cover, which it does. It's the same sort of look, but now instead of just Dancing Between the Raindrops, which covered the 80s in New York City of my life, now we're Dancing Between the Raindrops, the Hollywood years, which covers the 22 years I spent in Los Angeles. And I have always said, 22 years in Los Angeles, you get less for murder. And part of my experience in Los Angeles included, for the better, the advent of my television career. And interestingly, a big parts of that show business career, in addition to all the celebrity interviews and experiences of traveling that I got to do, were covering some notable passings, like the death of Heath Ledger, the death of Michael Jackson, the death of Farrah Fawcett, the death of Whitney Houston, the death of Robin Williams. I mean, there were. It made the difference in my reporting career from just being, showbiz news, to serious reporting and journalism. As you know, I mean, entertainment is a major part of our pop culture lifestyle these days. Of course, while I was living in Los Angeles as well, I was very closely involved in the O.J. Simpson double murder case, because I worked at the Mezzaluna restaurant, which was made famous as a result of the murder case. And there were many connections, and I delve into the O.J. Simpson experience in the book, as well as the odd, riots, earthquakes, all those other things that seemed to happen over the course of the time I was in Los Angeles. So, but it's all told with it's fictionalized, but very thinly veiled. And all of my nearest, dearest, and most loved people are represented in that, and lots of celebrity name dropping. And when you come across a celebrity's name that you don't recognize, it's because I had to change it for legal purposes. But otherwise, you'll probably figure it all out. So yes, that will be on sale. Dancing Between the Raindrops, The Hollywood Years, will be on sale this week. So you can grab it on Amazon or ask for it at your local bookstore. If you thought the 80s in New York City were wild, wait till you go dancing between the raindrops in the Hollywood Years. This sequel to my semi-autobiographical novel about life, love, and building a star-studded showbiz career moves to Tinseltown in 1990 and covers the tawdry 22 years there among the rich and famous. From the LA riots and O.J. Simpson's double murder trial to the deaths of Michael Jackson and Heath Ledger, there are also plenty of sexcapades and celebrity romps as we search for lasting love in the City of Angels. Don't miss out on the misadventures. Critics say it's the book you must read if you don't read anything else this year. Wildly entertaining and a juicy joyride through Hollywood. Dancing Between the Raindrops, The Hollywood Years, is available on Amazon or ask for it in your local bookstore. And grab an extra copy for your bestie.
Oh my gosh. So
who doesn't
fun.
love a juicy joyride?
I love it.
And I know you initially had this idea to present your story, you're loosely based on your life story, in like 3 books in a trilogy. This was a pretty quick turnaround, right? Because you put this
very
out.
quick. Yeah. You came to, Paul, you came to one of my book signings here in New York. When was that? It really wasn't that long ago. It was just
December.
a couple months ago.
December,
yeah. And then they're like, okay, I knew I was going to write the sequel. And they said, my deadline was originally November 1st. And I finished it 5 months ahead of schedule. And they said, we can get this out in time for summer beach reading. And I'm like, let's do it, because I want to do a part 3. So now I'm working on that. And there we go. Also, I'm working on a little Titanic something I've got up my sleeve. So yeah, I'm a very busy writer at the moment. And I do want to say, while we still have a few minutes left, I want Allyson to tell you about her Burt Bacharach album, because I was just thinking she's wearing her lovely yellow, and there are some photos of her from the Burt Bacharach album where she is unbelievable in yellow. Yellow is not an easy color to pull off. Allyson, can you talk about that?
Oh, sure. Well, so the 60s, you got to go big, bold colors, going with these really fun, intricate arrangements. We just wrapped recording our 20-song Burt Bacharach tribute album. We did it my band and I did this winter, and we will be releasing that this July, doing a CD release concert at Birdland. And it's just a fresh retelling of those wonderful Bacharach David compositions, highlighting a lot of the hits that Dionne Warwick made famous, but also some of the other women that Burt collaborated with, Dusty Springfield, Cilla Black, also Herb Alpert, and Tijuana Brass. So it's kind of a collection of a lot of the well-known hits, and then a few that you probably haven't heard before. So I was kind of digging deep in the catalog, and there's some that Peggy Lee debuted, and I have one that has not been recorded since she did it in the 60s. I have a Yiddish language tune featuring Broadway star Julie Benko, whose husband, Jason Yeager, is our pianist, every day for me and in these upcoming shows for Tony Bennett as well. So we have a lot that went into that album. It's taking you back to that 60s world. I call it the sexy 60s, where the music was cool, everyone dressed fabulous, and color TV was the big thing. So it was just bright colors. I wore orange for the first time in my life this year. That was scary, but I was like, I think I could do orange and yellow. This is exciting. So a new Burt Bacharach album on the way to find that perfect balance of refreshing the oldies but goodies with a new sound that honors the original, always finding that balance of honor what's special about the original, put your new spin on it. And we did this just as a quintet. It's just a 5-piece jazz band. So instead of a massive studio orchestra, we pared it all the way down so that you could really appreciate the intricacies of Burt's arrangements and Hal David's lyrics.
And But this isn't like your band's first work that you're putting out there. As I discovered earlier when I made the Instagram story, your band has recordings out there that people can listen to. Where do you suggest people find your music?
This is our 7th studio album, and we are on all the streaming platforms. We are a very high-tech retro band. So you can go to my website, flairseule.com, or any place that you listen to music. If you type in Fleur Seule, you'll only find us.
And no matter how you pronounce it, Paul.
Right.
What's the translation of that?
It means the lone flower, and I just thought it was cool at the time. I was like, okay, this makes sense. But my musicians always tease me and they go, oh, so are we the weeds? No, that wasn't what I was thinking at the time. You guys are the leaves and the branches and the roots that support.
And I mentioned Instagram earlier. I encourage anybody out there listening to follow both Allyson and Nelson on Insta if you aren't yet. Both of their accounts are just a joy to peruse. Nelson's at Nelson Aspen and Allyson is at Fleur Seule. That's FLEURSEULE.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, yes. Just one L though.
Correct.
Yes. And her website, as she mentioned, flairseule.com. Nelson's at nelsonaspen.com. The show is on the Green Room 42 website. The Tony Bennett tribute is coming up. Now, I do want to mention, too, we've been talking about these 2 books that Nelson wrote, and he just teased a Titanic book as well. But these aren't your first books either.
No, they're my first fiction books, even though they're based on my life. They're my first novels. I've written many sort of anecdotal stories. One's called Hollywood Insider Exposed, which was sort of a chronicling my time in Hollywood professionally. I did a book, how-to book, when I moved into my current home, which was during the pandemic, and that's called Your Home is Your Castle: Live Like an A-Lister in a Post-Pandemic World, and that actually debuted at #1 on Amazon's home remodel and renovation charts. Much to my surprise, I don't know. I hit it lucky. People like home improvement, and there was that. And I did a couple of dinner party books. So yeah, I'm a writing machine, and I just want to sort of tell the stories. And the Dancing Between the Raindrops series is really a treat because it's basically. And what I think is one of the reasons why I can write it so quickly is it's the anecdotes that I have been telling my whole life. These are the stories that are the most noteworthy to me from my almost 61 years on this earth. So yeah, I've told them so many times. Now I've just given them characters and tell them that way. So it's been fun to do, and I'm really enjoying the response. I had to channel my inner Jackie Collins and not be afraid to be naughty and profane and graphic, and that was hard for me because I'm a pretty squeaky clean guy, and I let her rip, and people liked it. So wait till you read part 2. It really starts off with a bang.
I know you've been so self-conscious about like letting a bad word or two slip on the last time you were here. I was like, dude, it's fine. It's totally fine.
You had me do a reading and I'm like, oh my God, what have I started? There's no going back.
Yes. And oh my gosh. So we have so much to explore, so much to check out, but I'm going to do my darndest to get there and to see your Tony Bennett tribute live, and anyone that can that's in the Manhattan area, it's a must see. You got to be there, and I'm hoping that I can as well. But thank you,
so. Paul. You're always so generous. You're always so generous and inclusive, and that's why we made friends and stayed friends. So we're grateful. Thank you for having us today.
And something about the show itself too, to not forget, is that we have these incredibly intricate, unique arrangements that Tony did. His arrangements were very different from what you typically hear. His version of Fly Me to the Moon was very different. Our duets are a lot more complicated. The ones that he did with Gaga on those collaborations, very intricate and not commonly heard. So they're going to be fresh versions that you're not familiar with probably, as well as we've got a snappy, fabulous band of mine that Nelson, you've been working with us. So you're going to get all kinds of top caliber entertainment
There's a lot of
squeezed
talent
into
up
one
there.
concert.
Our musical director, Andy Warren, it's impossible with the body of work that Tony Bennett produced over the course of his 96 years on Earth to get it all in. And so what we've done, we've selected the songs that we wanted to do for ourselves, but we also wanted to make sure we included as much as possible. So Andy has concocted what we call it the mega medley, so that we get as many Tony songs in as we can, and please everybody. We can't get it all in, but boy, we're getting a lot in, and it should run about 75 minutes by our calculations. If you just hold for applause, it should run about 70.
And of course, if we can't get there live, we mentioned the August 4th show will be live streamed. This YouTube network, the Vodacity network, was born from live streaming live performances during COVID. So a lot of our audience here is used to just watching a live stream, live performances if you can't be together in person.
And
so
that link, the green room tells me that if you purchase the live stream ticket, you have that link for a week. So you don't have to watch it live. You'll have it for up to a week.
Very excited. And I'm so grateful to both of you for joining us. Nelson, it's just always a pleasure. You mentioned like me being gracious. Like the minute we started talking, you've just been nothing but the most welcoming and hospitable man. And I can't thank you enough for spending time with us. And Allyson, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you. And hopefully this is
thank you.
Not our last conversation. Oh, and happy birthday, belated birthday weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
25 again.
And thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Allyson. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a hand. And have a great rest of your night. We'll see you soon. Well, they are wonderful.
They are. They certainly are. I'm going to see if we can make an arrangement when Susan and I plan on getting out there to see Nelson. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah. And even just to meet him, like that's what Jamie and I went to his book signing in December, and he's just the man you see on the live stream is who he is. He's just so kind and welcoming and a wonderful person to chat with for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Love it. I don't know if we have the time for a poem, but I actually did find a Tony Bennett poem.
You did?
Yes.
Poetry, not even lyrics, but poetry.
Poetry.
Okay. What's it about?
Well, actually, it's about Tony Bennett's later years, and it's from somebody by the name of James C. Allen. It was written in 2012. I think he went and he's always been a fan of Tony Bennett, and so it actually does talk about the duets and the times Tony re-emerged. And I agree with that, with what was said, is he re-emerged, because when you think about it, when Tony Bennett came out and did the Duets album, I mean, the only reason why people would see Tony Bennett was if maybe their mother or father or grandparents shared some of the songs. And maybe if anybody knew about, I Left My Heart in San Francisco, that would be really the only reason why people would say, oh, that's Tony Bennett.
Mm.
And then he totally reinvents himself. He does what he has always done. And what I love is like even the little story that was shared earlier in the podcast. It's like, this is Tony. This is who I am. And like me or not, I'm not changing. And this particular poem is called Elegant, parentheses, for Tony Bennett. And it's just a short poem, but it's really, really nice.
Craig Jackman's first poetry reading of season 2, ladies and gentlemen. Here's Elegant.
Despite my initial impression, there was nothing sour or bent. about the direction he has taken his music in recent years. The duets with Winehouse and Gaga, other things that I might have thought would have been off or sharp, poking me to that higher appreciation. So this is what it means to be an artist, the inevitable transformation. His constant reinvention of the ancient style, the inability to rest on one's laurels, even after delivering the perfect song in San Francisco.
Just like that, Season 2 has launched. Be sure you're subscribed, as here in Season 2, Cove Podcast will be on every other Tuesday, and in the Tuesdays in between will be my new show, Titanic Legacy Podcast. Be sure you're subscribed to that if Titanic interests you. But can't wait for a brand new season, catching up with old friends and meeting new ones here in the Cove. And I want to say thank you to all of our Cove community Patreon curators: Angelica Bolschweiler, Anna Gina Vola, Charity Swanson, Emily Thatcher, Gina Dobbs, Josepha Snyder, Kelsey Blaine Gibson, Krista King, Meryl Milkey, the Farrens, Susan Kuhn, and of course my lovely wife, Jamie Carganilla. Thank you all for supporting the podcast from day one, helping us continue to go and grow. And until the next one, make each day count.
I put the coat on her!